Hi everybody, and welcome to Painting for Pleasure. On today's agenda is a seascape, but this is just totally a seascape. This is like water. Water, waves, no shore, maybe some rocks, but it's out there in the middle of the ocean with some rocks, and we're not going to deal with anything coming up on the shore. We're just going to do some white water. And this will give you an idea as to how to really handle these waves as they come in. Now I just roughly sketched this out. It really it's just totally abstract when you sketch this, some of this stuff. As an example, what's going to happen in here is all white water. This is going to be all white water up here. This is going to be blue water over here. By white water, I'm talking about waves and foam and those kinds of things like that. And this is going to be all white water with maybe a little bit of a rock in this area right here. I'm going to show you the piece that I'm going to use as my reference, and it's basically this. Okay, so see what I'm talking about is that you've got all of this white foam that's going on over here, white foam that's over here, but pretty much all blue water. All of this stuff is going to be lighter and whiter with some rocks that we're going to be seeing through, so we're going to have to work that all out. It should be interesting. We'll give it a shot, but I don't think any of us has done anything like this in the past. So I thought maybe we'd give it a try. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to paint. I'm going to basically leave the white water, that is all of the foam, I'm going to leave it white. So one of the ways to do that is to just wet the entire paper and then lift it out, or just leave it white. What I think I'm going to do here is to do a little bit of each. So let's take we'll take some clear water and we'll start with our 1-inch brush, and I need to clean my brush out so that I have all of the pigment out of here. Now I'm just gonna use this down here. This is where my rock is gonna be. And if I'm going to do something, we're gonna wet the surface up here. I'm gonna wet around this area of white here. This is all going to be blue, my blue water, but I'm going to wet around. Now I'm basically, because of the brush I am using, I have a little bit of a cast in here, a little bit of a cast of yellow. But we'll resolve that issue anyway in a bit. But we're painting around that, and we're going to paint some of the water that's going to come in over here, leaving all of this white, maybe some area down here. Perhaps maybe we got some white water in this area here, and we have some blue water in this area right here coming over, and we have some blue water over here. And this is white here. We have some blue water that's going to come over like this. In this area here, we have some blue water, touches of blue water. This is going to be all rock with water that's going to be crawling over it. And we're going to put some rocks in here and here. So this is all flat rock that you're seeing through. So, first things first, what I want to do is I'm wetting, I'm going to pick up some wet cerulean blue, and I'm going to start with cerulean blue. Alright, so see what I'm doing here is I'm getting this cerulean blue. Now my paint is not quite like I normally would have it. It's a little bit on the hard side, so I'm scrubbing it, but it's basically on the wet side. And we're gonna do a real quick wet into wet some of these areas right here. For instance, right here, we're gonna do a little bit of wet into wet. And notice that was a fast stroke. I started off the page, and I'm coming in here, and I'm gonna do a fast stroke, and I'm turning it. All right. Same way with over here. We're gonna do the same thing with this here. We're gonna come in here and give me a fast stroke right here and here, and some of this stuff over here. I'm going to come down here with my cerulean blue here. I'm going to come up into this area right here. White water. Now you can see what's happening. I'm going to take and change up. I'm going to get a little bit bluer, so I'm adding some cobalt blue out in this area here. Adding a little bit of deeper cobalt blue. And my consistency out there is going to be more of a consistency of butter. Add a little bit of French ultramarine blue. Okay, we're going to come up here, pick up some of this area here. This is all going to be blue with some water coming over. Maybe a little bit of that stuff coming down this way here. We'll probably have a little bit of that stuff in here as well, not too much. Maybe on the white side. A little bit more cerulean in nature. Okay. I'm going to take right now and just take a little bit of this blue, because we do have some spattering in here. Doing this actually right now. I'm going to add a little bit of my opera to this and mix it up. A little bit more, just water to lighten this up a bit. Dripping it here and there. All right. As I said, this is a matter of technique and effect, with water coming in arbitrarily. Just we're trying to create the illusion, remember, of ocean. So what I just did here is I just took a little bit of burnt sienna and added it to my blue. And I'm spattering this because this is a lot of stuff that's around here. A lot of rocks underneath the water kind of thing. A little bit of French ultramarine blue added to that. Probably add some yellow ochre to it. But again, we're just trying to get this thing so that it's creating all of this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful water as it breaks over. And then all of this nice white water. And go back, let's get back here to this front, my cerulean blue. Leaving white. Now this is a fast project, so I think maybe for some of you, probably the best thing to do, because if I do this slow, it's not going to work out. So for some of you, maybe it's just better to sit back and watch this, and then you can watch the video and slow down the video a little bit more. Now this is all, a lot of this is really all wet. Totally abstract piece, right? You gotta clean all this spattering stuff that I did over here, all the way around. Let's get some water in here. Nice heavy pigment, cerulean blue, in certain areas. For instance, we're coming down here with a little bit heavier pigment, cobalt blue, cerulean blue. Cobalt blue, cerulean blue, a little darker area out here, cobalt blue. This is nice and wet. Notice a little heavy. This is now the heavy pigment I'm putting in here is pigment in the form of butter. Okay, so we're looking at buttery pigment as we come across. Cobalt blue and cerulean blue, combination of that too here. So we're going to do the same thing with all of this stuff in here. We're going to come in here and we're going to create some wonderful feelings of water breaking. A lot of cerulean blue. All right. Now I'm coming in here and I'm just making some sort of gray marks or rocky type marks, water traveling. That's still a little bit in the wet side. This my water, and basically what you're going to see is that this is pretty loose. See, that's heavy pigment. This is watery pigment. This is watery pigment, and here that's heavier pigment. So I'm using a combination of wet pigment and dry pigment. All right, and we're going to let this play and let this set. Get a little bit of yellow ochre. And maybe we'll bring this rock right out of there. Little darks, little darks, little darks, little darks. Little darks. What I'm doing now is I'm just simply mixing up some French ultramarine blue and some burnt sienna together to create dark areas underneath that wave, for instance. A couple of dark areas here as the rock comes down. A little bit more solid pigment. Very loose. Right, very loose. Well, now we're going to end up letting it dry a bit. I'm going to take a real thin brush and get some clean water in here and start to maybe lift out a little bit here and there. I'm adding water. Lifting. Doodling, nibbling, creating some just interesting things. Probably going to add a little bit of this purplish stuff in here. Usually what ends up happening is that the water breaks. It tends to be a little bit more shadowy here and there. And as this starts to dry, we're going to just beef it up a little bit. Want to get some of that stuff darker out there. And what I'm doing is I'm lifting out some water. What I'm basically doing right now is just lifting out some water in these areas. Okay. Wetting it, softening it up. Lifting out the water. Lifting out the colors. Taking my tissue. Trying to create, softening these edges here a little bit. And again, lifting it out. Some hard edges, some soft edges. Again, some soft edges and some light edges, right? Some hard edges. Where I want my foam, I'm just adding a little bit of water and lifting out. Where I'm looking for foam. Let it penetrate. Coming in here with a tissue and lifting it out. Water is funny. It just this water's just taking some of this purple that's over here, and I'm delineating some of this area. I mean, you know, some of it, it's just basically water over water. What we're hoping for is just a super loose painting. Okay, let's get back to the real crux to this, and that is my cerulean blue, and a lot darker. Make some of those waves. I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt blue to that. And to change it up a bit, I'm going to just add a bit of alizarin crimson. Whoa, way too much. Alizarin crimson is a powerful color. Powerful. When I say a little bit, I mean just a little bit of alizarin crimson. Okay, so what I just did is I took some cobalt blue. I actually just added some French ultramarine blue as well to this, and then just a touch of alizarin crimson to get this on the purple side. But here we're going to start to create some darks out here. So we're going to work out in this area right now, and I'm just going to sort of give myself, I'm just touching this lightly, And the darker color, the darker value is going to be away from us. I'm basically just making some little wave marks. Okay, you see what I'm talking about? These fine lines this is what's going to tell the story. This is the story of waves. Alright, so a little bit of French ultramarine blue with a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to get that nice dark going right over this area right here. And we're going to come in here and do the same thing. Alright. Cerulean blue. Strong cerulean blue. Okay. Now, coming forward, I'm not going to have so... I mean, it's going to be fairly dark out there. Coming forward, it's not going to be so dark. Coming forward, I think we're just going to end up coming in here and lightening this light, make this a little bit lighter here. We'll just make this a little bit more cerulean blue with nothing else. And water tends to be, there's a lot of white water, which is linear. So the only way you can really do that is to not do it as white, but do it as the color of the blue water. Well, in order to create that light area, you have to sort of do it in blue and leave the white. See what I'm talking about? These little patches of blue here and there. Let's see if we can make this happen here. Make this a little bit more interesting. And we'll make this a little bit darker there. Okay, so we got that wave that's out there that's coming in. That's fairly good. Now, I'm just taking a little bit of a light. Let's just go over here. I'm coming down here with a little bit of darker value as this wave crests. And it has a little dark edge here, so I'm going to soften. I'm going to leave that edge hard, but we'll soften this up. Alright. And the same down here. In this area right here, for instance, where all of this stuff is, we've got a lot of areas where it's a lot darker, where the water's coming in. So we're going to make it darker. And I'm going to basically end up making this darker, but also browner. I want this to be a little bit darker there. Alright, and a little bit darker down here. Okay, but let's get back to this pretty color. Let's get back to this cerulean blue. Okay. Now I got something here called peacock blue, which is a very bright. You don't have that, so well, I'm not going to use it then. If you don't have it, we're not going to use it. I don't want you to. I want you to do this in the colors that we've got. So I'm taking some light. Touching a little bit of these light areas. This is all wet now, remember. Just creating a little bit of white water there. A little bit of wave breaking there. By lifting, we're just lifting this out. Yeah. Maybe a little bit here. Maybe we'll just touch this up here with a little bit of water and lift that out there. Crest this here. Okay. And let's do this. Create these swirls of water out there. Okay. Lighten this up a bit with water. Soften that up. What I'm doing is I'm just, some of these areas out here are whiter than others, and we get a little dark. What generally happens is that in those cases, it's a little bit darker underneath them. And some of these areas here, I'm just taking a little bit of light cerulean blue and creating these sort of Z-shaped patterns out here that tend to create this white water. I'm using this little tiny, I can use my, I'm using this little flat brush, but I could probably just as well use a little round brush as well. Just swirls of those waves. But again, this is abstract. You know, we don't have to be absolutely perfect here. It's not about perfection so much as convincing our audience of what we're trying to do. Just coming in here and taking out some little lighter areas. As that water breaks. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Now this is just cerulean blue that I'm putting over here. We want it to break, and we want it to have a nice super feel. Let me just take a little bit of this. What I just did is I picked up some Naples yellow. Just touching it here and there. My cerulean blue. This is a lot darker. This is going to be a lot darker in my values right here. We got some super darks in here that are breaking. And it looks like we got some super darks down here that are breaking. And we're going to just bring this up, make this a little lighter. It's interesting when you start to play around with this stuff, how you start to look at the values that are in here, and not so much the color, but the values. Yeah. We're going to end up a little bit darker. These are little blue patches. There's a lot of white water that's surround them. And this is all dark over here, pretty much. That's all right. Maybe a little darker there, a little darker there. Water's funny. I mean, water's, this is just, wash some of this stuff in here off of that. Off of that. Okay, and I'm just using a lot of cerulean blue. Within my cerulean blue is the consistency of butter, and I keep going back into these areas that are wet. To try to beef them up. Get a little bit of cobalt blue in there. Mix this up a little bit. Maybe I'm going to add a little bit of lavender, because you guys have lavender, I know that. And I'm just going to come down here a little bit. and add a little bit of lavender to that and soften up the inside. And some of this area here. A little darker. There you go. So my water's coming in on the shore. Okay, so let's get back to my rock. We have a nice hard edge here. Let's get a little bit of dark area here. All right, a little darker pigment. What I did is I've got my rock area over here. So what I'm doing is I'm basically coming in here with my mixture of burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. Make this really dark. Leave some light areas here and there. Very strong right there. Combination of French ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And it's going to be dark. It's going to be dark right underneath. Where that rock is, that stuff's popping out. And we have some striations of water. Some water rushing out over these areas. So I'm just coming in here with just a light tone of whatever I have on my palette. This mixture of blue and my burnt sienna and my a little bit of opera that was in my palette, and just making some lines. Create a flat surface. And then I'm going to come in with some real darks. Again, my mixture of burnt sienna and French ultramarine blue. And patting this to create an illusion again of water hitting this area. How to create this. This is just sort of interesting. Again, trying to keep this nice and loose. These are all rocks under here. This is all rocky area with a lot of water. And I'm going to try to take some of that even out a little bit now. wet. One way of doing it. Again, wet and splatter. Alright, sort of wet. And splatter. A little bit of everything. Super loose. We'll let it set up. Take a look at it in a bit and see how we like it. And we'll go from there. My fan brush. Coming back in here with a little bit of Naples yellow and giving myself a little bit of texture on top of this. We're creating a little bit more rock structure. And I'm wiping a little bit of my Naples yellow across this in a more of an opaque, strong opaque feel. Okay. Same way with a little yellow ochre, a little bit stronger. Blending it together. Okay. Okay, now I need to take, what's going to happen here is that this is pretty dry and I'm going to mix up some white opaque paint because the only way I can get some of this water back the way I want it is to work with a little bit of white. So let me, and I don't normally do this, but in this case we're going to. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my brush and wet it, pick up some white paint, as you can see here, all right? And I'm going to just start start to get some of this white flaky stuff back. This is all white. Oh. So we're going to take a little bit of white, and I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to actually make my white take a little bit of my white lines here. Now this is a okay. Okay, the same way with over here. And that's just what I'm doing, is moving my brush back and forth with a little bit of, actually the paint is really not white, it's sort of a bluish. And it's because I picked up some of the blue in this area, but you get the idea. What we need is churning. It's the only way to do this, actually, or one of the few ways. You have to actually go back in and use a little bit of opaque paint to get that general feeling of water coming in. foamy water. Okay, I think that's about it. At least I'm going to leave it here for now and come back and visit it later. But I think we should be okay. Okay, I think looking at this, looking at that, we're pretty much close to where we want to be. And I think I'm going to call it a piece of painting. Just going to do, well, I think that's it. Other than just a little bit more glazing, a little bit more blue glazing here. Just let me just get a little bit of water. So light blue. Just, I think we're good. One more little swipe here. We're just going to glaze on top of that. Okay. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you being with me. I'm your host, Tony Visco, and I think this is a wrap. And hopefully we'll see you next week. Thanks again. Bye-bye.